The president pitched the White House plan to combat the opioid crisis during a speech in New Hampshire today, and he took shots at sanctuary cities, drug companies, and weak punishment for drug dealers. Here he is doubling down on his most controversial proposal. Watch.
If we don't get tough on the drug dealers, we're wasting our time. Just remember that. We're wasting our time. And that toughness includes the death penalty.
So will the president's tough talk help at all? Let me ask Reason.com's managing editor, Peter Suderman. Computerman joins me live right now from Washington, D.C. So, Peter, let's discuss this a little bit, because people want to see some sort of resolution. I understand that. People want the government to do something, but they can actually make a bad situation worse, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. I think the most important words in that clip you played of President Trump were "get tough." That's what Trump wants to do, what he wants to be seen to be doing. But getting tough and treating the opioids epidemic, the opioids problem, as a criminalization problem, as one of crime, is the wrong way to go. And I think if you look back, actually, at my home state of Florida and what they tried to do in the late 1990s, you saw what happens here. Basically, what they did is they passed really severe mandatory minimum sentences, not the death penalty, but very long jail sentences for people who were supposed to be high-level dealers bringing drugs into the state. This was a state that had a really big problem with drugs, and in particular with OxyContin and some of the other sort of early opioids. They were kind of first on the scene with the opioids crisis, and what happened was the vast majority of the people who were locked up were first-time offenders, often caught with just a handful of pills. And so they didn't actually stop opioids. They didn't solve the problem. Instead, what they did was they destroyed people's lives. Yeah. People who, in many cases, were not high-level dealers bringing in truckloads or boatloads of drugs from out of state.
I know, but we're having finally a conversation. It's very interesting that it's happening on the Republican side. And a lot of this took place during the 2016 presidential race, when you heard Carly Fiorina and Jeb Bush and President Trump telling very personal stories about losing people or almost losing family members to drug and alcohol addiction. And, you know, it's one thing to have a party say, we need to talk about treatment. That is great. We need to take people out of the prison system and reduce the criminalization. And finally, once and for all, talk about treating people. Instead, we're taking the most extreme turn, which is toward executing drug dealers, which Jacob Solom pointed out rightly in Reason. There are people who buy drugs. There are people who sell drugs. It is not a one-way street.
That's right. I mean, I really think this is it's very misguided. And it's understandable in certain ways that people would want to be seen, that President Trump would want to be seen as taking serious action, that people would want him to take serious action. But the serious action that can be taken is to treat the opioids epidemic as a crisis of medicine, as an issue with people who are sick and needed to be treated. I think, you know, talking about all of these politicians, all of these people, people who are watching who have probably had personal experience, who know somebody who has overdosed, who has had a problem with addiction. What we want to do with those people is find ways to help them. That is the goal here. And these sorts of extremely harsh, get tough types of actions, like President Trump was proposing today, I really think they're very misguided. They're not going to work. We've seen it time and time again. And instead, what we need to be doing is treating these people like people who need help and are sick.
Yeah, and not issuing violations of the Constitution one after another. Yes. Peter, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.